Hold on to your foreskins, it's about to get intense as we go into the Abrahamic covenant. This suzerain covenant was between God himself, Abraham, and his descendants. This is sort of a unique covenant because God is starting a new form of relationship through Abraham, and this will continue as a theme throughout the Old Testament as God focuses his relations on one family. The stipulation of this covenant is a very interesting form of a sign, which would be circumcision.
This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised.
Go Google that if you don't know what it is. But please leave your safe search turned on. The blessing for this stipulation was God was going to create a nation. Not just a nation in the sense of having the land, but a nation that would be dedicated to God, to understanding him better and building a community founded on faith in the one true God.
I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. All the nations of the earth will be blessed through you.
But the curse that came with rejecting the covenant was being cut off from the community, was being kicked out of the country, and set apart from the family of faith.
Any uncircumcised male who has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
And the sign given for cementing this covenant was that Abraham and Sarah would conceive a child even in their advanced age. This covenant is so powerful that from this family and from this nation, there would come such a move of God that people from this community would bless people from every single nation in the world. So let's get a little icky and talk about circumcision. We have to ask ourselves the tough question, why circumcision? I mean, could you imagine how the dialogue went down between Abraham and God? Oh God, I love you so much. Thank you so much for this incredible covenant. It is going to be great for us. We are so excited. So what's the stipulation? What do you want us to do in return?
Thou shalt become circumcised.
Might need to explain that. What exactly is that?
Well, it's kind of where you cut the... Let me just put an image in your brain.
What? Why? Why is that a thing? What you made it? I mean, really? How does that, help people or further the kick? That's kind of a weird one, God, not gonna lie. There are three possible reasons we're going to discuss for why God brought about the covenants of circumcision. We see that the Egyptians were practicing circumcision long before Abraham comes on the scene. Their practice of circumcision was usually reserved for making someone a priest or a slave. It's possible that this ceremony denoted a form of ownership where one family circumcised someone to denote that they now belonged to that family and were now their slave. God, preemptively realizing that the children of Abraham were going to become slaves in Egypt, almost had them circumcised beforehand to signify they did not belong to the Egyptians. They were not the property of Egypt, but they in fact had already been claimed and were owned by the God of Abraham. The second possibility is circumcision serves as a discrete, visible, unbreakable, unmovable covenant. Unlike a one-time ceremony like a baptism, which you won't be able to see later, or a vocal declaration that can later be recanted, circumcision is a permanent sign that cannot be changed. For the rest of one's life, the circumcision covenant that they have made will be always visible. So much so that circumcision has been used as a way of persecuting Jews throughout their history. Nefarious anti-Semites have actually forced Jewish men to reveal themselves to see if they were or were not circumcised, to reveal themselves as Jews. This was so problematic that some Jewish men actually resorted to trying to stretch out the skin in that area so as to reform the foreskin to make them appear as though they were not circumcised. This shows the severity and the depths people will go to in order to avoid showing they're visibly circumcised and therefore Jewish. The third possible reason is circumcision could signify sexual fidelity unto the Lord. We see that the patriarchs sometimes practice sexual infidelity or sexual deviancy even though they were married. The act of circumcision would be a permanent sign on the offending member to permanently remind them that they have made a commitment unto God. If you could imagine that you tend to sin with a particular organ, and God puts a big giant bold tattoo on there saying, "Be holy. Remember what we talked about? I am watching you. I can see. Just here's a little sign to remind you I know what you're about to do." We also see that the patriarchs struggle with infertility. We often see them, having children later in life, and we even have statements where God is opening and closing the womb and enabling the patriarchs to have children. The circumcision could be a reminder of the covenant that God is in charge of the reproductive process, and it was a way of calling upon his blessing in the deal. We also see elements of the Eden covenant in Abraham's relationship with God. In both covenants, the parties are commanded to increase and multiply. We see this concept come in a bit of a crescendo, where God is promising land to Abraham, that he's going to create a great nation that's going to spread and grow, and all the nations of the earth are going to be blessed by this growth and by this blessing. Very similar to the Eden covenant. We also see a connection to the Eden promise, where the seed of Eve is going to crush the head of the serpent. This could be an messianic promise that is linked to the Abrahamic promise, where God's going to bless the nations through the land of Abraham's descendants. Finally, just how in Eden, God meets with Adam and Eve under the tree, and the tree is central to the blessing. We see repeatedly whenever Abraham is in contact with God, it seems to happen under a tree. This signifies the presence of God being under a tree within both covenants.